Yay! Okay.
Hi, and welcome to JamToast with me, Vidya Prakash. Our artist today needs no introduction. The world adores him. I adore him. You adore him. And we're going to let his song introduce him. So here we go.
Gudugudiya Sedi Nodo. Gudugudiya Sedi Nodo. ಒಡಲೊಳಗಿನ ರೋಗ ತೊರೆದು ಯಾರೋ
I'm melting right now. I can't even feel myself. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the show, Raghu.
Thank you.
So, we're cracking up our indie scene today with Raghu Dixit on the seat. To begin with, I just want to know how your tour went.
Oh, our tour, probably for the first time, we broke even and I got 800 pounds back home.
Wow.
So after all these 8 years of touring, I think this was our most successful tour. Simply because every tour we've self-funded ourselves. But this time, the Karnataka tourism came on board saying, you've been doing this for years now, taking Karnataka and Karnataka's poetry to the rest of the world, so it would be a perfect fit. And it was a whimsical meet that happened with the tourism minister. And from outside, we always are skeptical sometimes about if government works at all in favor of the general public. But luckily, we got to meet the Honorable Minister Priyank Kharge, and Gaurav, my manager, just rattled off in the few minutes that we had with him, saying, we've been doing this for so many years, and we would be, thrilled to be associated with tourism. And he's like, why haven't we done this all these years? Why didn't you approach me earlier? It was that kind of a meeting. So within under 10 minutes, I think we had sealed a deal where Karnataka Tourism sponsored our
Amazing.
flights and a little more to take care of the major expense of the tour. So that resulted in us probably making some money and bringing it back home.
Wow.
But otherwise, every year we lose a lot of money, especially and that is the mission, to spend whatever money we earn in India to augment our touring circuit to the rest of the world. So it takes a lot of consistent touring before you build your profile in the rest of the world. And UK is the hub of world music, and once you establish yourself in the UK and the rest of Europe and way into US becomes easier. So yeah, we started touring abroad since 2009, and we've done about 15 tours to UK alone in these 9 years, and this was one of the most successful ones.
Really? What was a typical day like?
Typical day is like there is no typical day.
Or tell me about your best day of the tour.
Best day of the tour?
How did it look like?
Oh, you mean on the tour?
On the
Okay.
tour, yeah.
On the tour is wake up really, really early in the morning, get into the tour van, and travel to the next city. And you land just in time to grab a bite and start getting prepared for the backline to be lugged. So what happens in UK or anywhere else in the world is completely different from what happens in India. In India, we artists are pampered. We can send them a hospitality rider in India of saying, I need a car to pick me up from my doorstep, drop me to the airport, land in some city, and another car picks you up, takes you to a five-star hotel and puts you up. And then by the time you arrive at the sound check, you're expecting as an artist, the sound is already ready and you just need to plug in and start doing your sound check. Whereas in the West, you hire your own van, you get your own driver, you rent your own backline, like your amps and cables and mics, whatever you need. and you take it to the specified location exactly at that time that you're specified to come at. And then you lug your own equipment up the stage. You are told which patch bay you are supposed to connect each of these amps or instruments, and you connect it yourself. You're expected to bring your own cables. And once you're connected, only then the on-stage sound engineer gets on his job of balancing your sound for in-ears, if you're using in-ears or monitors, whatever. So there is a lot of hard work that goes into touring in the UK. So right from renting a van to playing a show, it's all on our own. There's absolutely no external help because we can't afford roadies anyway. So the typical day in touring is you go to that city, perform, and immediately pack yourself or lug back all your equipment into the van, and probably again probably catch a bite, and then you travel for the next 2 or 3 hours, stop somewhere in the middle so that you can get some rest, and next day again in the morning you travel another 3-4 hours to go to the next city, and the whole cycle starts. So this year we had toured for 14 days, and we had 11 gigs with 3 days break. So it's very hectic. It's very tiresome, especially as a vocalist. I find it very uh, taxing on the
So how do you
voice.
take care of your voice?
Well, for one, alcohol is completely banned on tour. I mean, not just on tour, but within the band also. Nobody smokes anyway, so that's great. So basically, eat good amount of food and sleep a lot. So I get to be the pampered one in the band. So I get to sleep. I don't need to do any duties of, say, uh, filling the petrol to. So I don't have to basically wake up in a car. When I'm sleeping, everyone lets me be. So that's a privilege. And in the night too, I am the first one to get the room. I am the one who is allowed to get up the last, and everyone has understands the fact that my voice needs that sleep,
Yeah.
and that's the only cure to heal before you. And especially with my kind of singing, I tear my tissues every show. So only lot of water and lot of sleep. That's the only way I can take care of it. And so if I miss sleep, that means I suffer the next gig, and that is worse because then it's a cascading effect because
Yeah,
each
yeah,
each time I tear more tissues, it just gets more and more worse for the voice.
Has it ever happened where you went up, where you were just going to go up to the stage and you realized you were in no shape?
Yeah, several times,
So
and
what
I
did
hate
you?
the feeling. I'll describe you one major incident. The first time ever in my entire career of 20 years, I couldn't sing at all. I went up on stage. It was at Queen Elizabeth Hall in London and South Bank Centre. 1,800 tickets sold for the Alchemy Festival. And third song, I already had suffered laryngitis for almost a week. So by the time I went on stage, it was like really bad. I went with a lot of low self confidence about whether I'll be able to pull it off or not. But so many times before that, I have managed to pull through a show. So I just prayed and thought it'll work. But third song into the show, and my voice just didn't come out. It was just air. I stopped the show and I apologized to the audience, saying, I just don't think I can sing. And I thought there'll be chaos, but everyone just stood up, clapped for 2 minutes, and silently walked out. Nobody claimed any money at the box office, refund, or anything like that. And I only got wishes on Twitter and Facebook and elsewhere. So it was the most cultured audience I've ever experienced, and the kindness that people showed that day I will be ever grateful. Similar situation in Yorkshire. We were playing at I forget the name of the place, but we were playing in York, and again my voice was completely in pits. Show after show after show, my voice was completely gone, and I tried every possible remedy, and it was the opening act had already started the show, and I said, Gaurav, I don't think I can sing today. And we met the the director of the venue, And she said, "Oh, so you can't sing? What a shame." That's okay. We can always explain it to the audience. Don't worry. It won't be a problem at all. And then she said, "Just for my sake, would you mind going on stage and just tell the audience that you won't be able to perform today?" And but by the time we went to the backstage, and I went on stage, and then somebody shouted from the audience, "Okay, maybe just one song." So I said, "Okay, I'll give it a shot, one song." So everyone came on stage and we started performing. We finished the song, and somebody said, "I think you can do another one." And then another one, and another one.
Oh
And
my
we ended up
gosh.
playing for an hour and a half, and we finished the entire set. So sometimes miracles happen like that, but sometimes just voice just gives up. But luckily, I've always found kindness from people.
That
So
is
that's amazing. Yeah.
what a blessing.
Yeah.
What has been your funniest moment this tour?
Funniest moment this tour. I rarely get to see the fun moments because I'm almost always sleeping. Uh, and the fun always happens when I'm not aware of it. And usually the victim of all the fun is our dear violinist, who is the youngest member in the band. And he comes from a very, what do you say, conservative Tambram family. So his viewpoints about everything from eating non-vegetarian food to eating or having a certain lifestyle is a point of wonder for him for everything. You know, he has questions about everything. So everyone takes a lot of pleasure in bursting his bubbles every now and then. So it's quite fun to be with Narayan. But otherwise, fun has always been on stage. A lot of people, in fact, have suggested that if I fail as a musician, I can easily become a stand-up comedian on stage. But that's just probably a good camouflage to cover up my nervousness of being on stage.
I think the off stage, like when we were jamming,
Yeah.
I remember there was never a dull moment because we were always laughing about something. So I think
Funny
you've
man I
always.
am.
What was your funniest moment on stage?
I think the funniest moment has been on tour was in 2009. Now that I remember, it was in Japan, and we had already finished touring Hong Kong's Vladivostok in Russia, and then we went to Japan. Uh, by then, we had finished about 8 days on tour, and I was dying to eat Indian food because I had already started missing Indian food. Because all through this tour, all our countries where seafood is the main staple food, and I don't eat seafood at all. So I found it very difficult to find decent vegetarian food, and I was vegetarian then. So there was this concert in Japan that we performed, and the organizer had organized dinner. And we went into the banquet hall, and we realized I saw that there was rice, and there was curry, and then there was poppadoms. And I said, "This is it." And there was something in the bottle which looked like a pickle. So I said, "This is the best thing ever." So I even thanked the organizer. So I put some rice as much as I wanted to eat because I wanted to eat my full finally. You know, so then I put as much curry as I wanted, and then I went and got poppadoms, and then I put pickle, started eating, and as if the world was going to end the next moment. And then the organizer came towards me from behind and said, "So how do you like the food?" I said, "This is the best food. Thank you so much. Like, I didn't know you had taken so much attention to get Indian food and that to vegetarian for us." And then that's when he laughed and he said, "This is not vegetarian food. Uh, it is a Japanese specialty. It's octopus curry."
Oh no!
So that's it. That was probably, on the hindsight, it is very funny, but at that moment I had to run to the restroom immediately and pull out everything that I
Octopus out
did.
of all things.
Yeah,
But didn't the smell? I mean, took you
I
out.
was
I'm a
oblivious to it.
vegetarian, so
Yeah, so I was oblivious to it, I think.
Are you still vegetarian?
No, 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 not
Not
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah, the touring has spoiled the Brahmin in me, I
I'd say
think.
octopus conversion.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
Oh man.
For many years, I tried to be vegetarian, but it just didn't help. After a while, when you travel abroad, it's very difficult to find good vegetarian food everywhere.
How is it connecting to the Japanese audience in terms of music?
I
Is it
think
different?
any audience 200 kilometers outside Bangalore is alien to my music. right? The language changes within the country like crazy, and so for me, performing in front of a Japanese audience or within India is same because I sing in my own language, which is Kannada, and but somewhere over the years, I've learned that to be a good performer, you also need to be a good storyteller. And then every song of mine has a story behind it. It has a purpose behind it. And especially the songs which are written 300, 400 years ago, these carry so many amazing messages, positive messages for the audiences. So when I tie every song with a story, uh, audiences really relate to the song post that. So that storytelling has definitely helped to bridge that language barrier. And now it doesn't matter where I'm performing, every audience is the same. Like I can assure you that when we perform in Delhi or Pune, people sing along Gudugudiya Sedi Nodo word to word or Lokadakalaji for that matter.
Wow. Give me
Well,
two lines of Lokadakalaji.
okay, sure. Only two lines.
Yep.
ಲೋಕದ ಕಾಳಜಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಂತಿ ಹಿಂಗ್ಯಾರ್ ಬ್ಯಾಡಂತಾರ ಮಾಡಪ್ಪ ಚಿಂತಿ. That means don't worry, be happy. But if you want to worry, I don't give a damn. So isn't that a universal message? So everybody relates to this song.
Happy songs. Like
Yeah.
you stress on happy songs.
Simply because I think there's just too much bad news everywhere anyway. You wake up in the morning, you pick up the newspaper, you only see the bad news in the front till the last. Probably even the sports pages are now filled with news of India losing most of the cricket matches. So unless it's against Sri Lanka or something. So yeah, there's very little to be positive about when you read the newspaper or watch television news. You have anchors shouting at the top of their voices, louder than me, and then in your neighborhood, you always get to hear something wrong happening, you know. And over a period of time, when you're bombarded with day in and day out with negative news and negative incidents around you, you start to believe that this world is actually bad and it's going to, from day to day bad to us. But then we often ignore the fact that there are so many, maybe few in number, but still hundreds of people doing small little things in their own small little ways to keep this world happy, you know, and they're doing incredible work. So when people come to my concert, I know they've come with already a baggage of negativity which they've experienced. Secondly, of their own personal life or their professional life. So when I come up on stage and if I sing about save the world or save the trees or save the rivers or sing about heartbreak or husband leaving or wife leaving or whatever, you know, or about alcoholism or anything, you know, all the problems of the world, I think I'm only going to augment that feeling inside them, which is already there. But instead, if I spend that hour and a half or two in singing songs which are happy and make them dance and make them sing along and make them forget all those worries, eventually only to send them back to their problems, which they already have. But somewhere, hopefully, 15 to 20% of that audience will look back at their problems and say, hey, maybe this is not that bad after all. So over the years now, I think that it has become our USP in a way. Very strangely, unwittingly, we became labeled as the band which makes everybody happy, and we are now called the happiness band. In fact, the previous tour that we did to US was branded as Master Plan for Happiness. So it's become that. So we refrain from singing sad or negative songs on stage. I have lots of negative songs and sad songs, but I don't sing them on stage at all.
Wow. But yeah, you're giving them perspective, right? Coming back to songwriting, actually. So when you're writing a song, with all this going on, how is it? What are your points of inspiration?
I don't write songs, first of all. now I've given up writing lyrics for songs myself, because now I realize there's enough literature lying around which is getting ignored, especially by the generation next. I don't think people realize the amazing treasure that we have in these poems and lots of literature. So I now spend time basically digging into poetry which was written many centuries ago, and make contemporary music to it so that the younger generation enjoys it. And therefore, in the process, somewhere they start digging into what is this song about. Like for example, the first song I sang, Gudugudiya Sedi Nodo, is mostly misunderstood by youngsters about as the song about smoking a hookah. But what Santa Shishnala Sharif, an 18th century poet who wrote this song, said was that open that small cloth bag called mind, pull out that hash called materialistic pursuits, put that in a chillum called faith, and burn it with a fire called intelligence. Smoke that hookah and tell me how it feels. So till they actually get to know the real meaning, they headbang because it's a cool song. It's about smoking a
Yeah,
hookah
I've
and
seen
all
you
that.
actually. Yeah.
But when I explain the song, that's when it hits them that it's beyond just that superficial beauty of the song, but it's got so much more depth in it. So over a period of time, it's funny how 18-year-olds headbang or dance to the song and sing along, but it's what pleases me is the fact that their parents are okay their children singing a song about hookah, because they feel happy that they are listening to something positive.
Yeah, I've seen you clarify this at a
Yeah,
few concerts. So
yeah,
how
yeah.
many times did you have to do this? Is
I
it
do it every time.
every
I do it
time?
every time because lots of youngsters, even before I start a show, they're already shouting for Gudugudiya, and I call them. I was like, come up on stage. Like I get
You
them on
come
stage.
here
I
now.
bully them, and it's like, now that you asked for the song, tell me why you want the song. Sir, it's beautiful song, sir. Super melody, sir. Super lyrics, sir. Oh, lyrics. Okay, tell me the lyrics of the song. So there's a Gudugudiya Sedi Nodo. Then, sir, then I don't know. Okay. I said,
Right.
great. So what does the song mean? Sir, that means smoke a hookah, sir. Super, sir. I said, then I give them pat. I will give them and actually explain the meaning of the song. And that's when they realize. So it's very important for me in a very fun way, trickle down the messages like that. So that it helps. It helps to bridge between the audience and my, that interaction really works every time. And it brings me closer to the audience, and audiences remember the song because of the fun thing that I've added to it. So yeah, it works every time without fail.
Have you been following a lot of independent artists now
Of
that
course,
have been writing songs?
it's amazing that when I started playing the guitar and then started singing, if I played Hotel California note to note, I would be considered, wow, a great musician, or play Slayer or Metallica or Iron Maiden note to note. I would be considered a good musician, or a band which would perform covers of these bands would be like a great band. But now I think more and more Indian bands have stopped looking westwards for influences or inspiration or imitation for that matter, and instead have started very proudly wearing India on their sleeve, write songs which are thematically local, but yet universal. I see lots of bands doing that. I think for the longest time, Thermal and a Quarter kind of pioneered that vision. I'm very proud that they are also from Bangalore. Uh, so many bands are now doing content which is truly original. That's a very very positive, and more bands are realizing that it's more real and more what do you say, more them when they're performing in their own language. I think that transition took a while, but now it's happening in a big way, and more bands are singing in their own mother tongue, which is amazing.
Yeah, that too. And they're creating new genres.
Absolutely. I mean, unwittingly also,
Right.
which is the best part, because when you consciously say, okay, I'm going to mix this genre and that genre and I'm going to bring them together, it never works. It's like chemical lab experiment, which almost always goes wrong. But when you do it from your heart and do it without any intention and just sing exactly what your heart wants to, or play whatever your heart wants to, I think the true you comes out. And then when you are playing it from your heart and your soul, and I think automatically you become very unique. You're not somebody else at all. And when you're unique, you get noticed because you're the only one who can do that kind of music.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any band that recently, lately caught your eye, or bands?
Oh,
Toast.
when Chai met Toast,
Yeah,
yeah, I
absolutely.
think I know the guitarist very well. He played for a couple of years with me. Another band I recently discovered last week. They released their first album. Is Easy Wanderlings from Pune. They're all 18, 20-year-olds, college-going students,
Great
but
song. Yeah.
such incredible mature writing and such beautiful, easy listening music. And lyrically, musically, they're all so evolved that it surprises me, and they sound so authentic and so real that I think if they hang on to what they're doing and are ambitious and put in that amount of hard work, I think they are going to be a big export from India to the rest of the world.
Would
Yeah.
it have been this easy years ago, like say 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
Yeah, no.
for an
That's
indie
when we were
musician?
struggling with dial-up internet.
How was it for you?
Oh, it was tough. It was tough. We had to wait for another concert before 10 more people could speak about us. But today, that's the only difference I see. That most of the bands now probably write one or two songs and then they post it on Facebook, and then I get so many of these messages saying we just did our first single, please listen to it and please post it, and if you don't listen to it for 2 days or something, and then they come back at you and saying why haven't you listened to it, why haven't you posted it. So when young bands come to me and artists come to me and say, so what do you think, sir, now I've got the 3 songs written, I want to release my EP. I said, come back to me when you have written your 60th song, because only after you write so many songs you will know what it takes to craft a song. Song crafting is where I feel most of the bands are suffering, but otherwise the fact that they are attempting to write their own music is commendable. So that way, lots of bands are doing great work. I'm also part of this jury which is judging the Sennheiser Top 50 contest, and I get to listen to almost
Wow, yeah.
150 bands across the country, and easily I can pick about 30 bands which all deserve to be on number one spot. There's so many good bands. There's just unreal how many great bands are doing great music now. And there's just so much content now and so much accessible avenues to listen to them. Internet has really revolutionized bands' approach towards music also. And the fact that the bands don't have to depend on middlemen anymore, like I had to when I started off. I needed a record label, I needed a booking agent, I needed whatever, uh, a guy who will promote me, etc., etc. But now, artists themselves, if they are hardworking, they can sit in their bedrooms and connect to audience around
Yeah,
the
true.
world. Like Easy Wanderlings, for example, that I mentioned, the band, they have more fans in Europe and UK now, and then a little bit in US than in India. India hardly knows their existence, but they already have fans abroad, which is incredible. So, sitting where they are in a small college hostel in Pune, they are able to reach out to the rest of the world, which is amazing.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
Actually, you beat me to it when you spoke about, what they're not getting right, which is song crafting. A few of the indie bands out there, actually, a lot of them, because many people are just taking their baby steps into this whole scene.
correct.
What are the other things that, maybe say 5 other things that indie bands should keep in mind or should not do?
I like both me and Gaurav almost always advise bands or any other musician for that matter. When you want to become a doctor, you're ready to study for 5 years, the basic MBBS course, and then you study 2 more years of masters. In between, you have to do a year of whatever rural service, and then you do your master's, MD, and then you do a specialization. So you're counting at least 10 years of studying before you can call yourself a doctor and get into a decent level as a professional doctor and earn decent amount of money. If you want to be an engineer, again, you study 4 years and then you do like 2 years of MS or whatever, And then you join as a junior engineer, trainee, whatever, and then a year later you start getting a better pay. So 6, 7 years, I would say. But musicians expect stardom and fame immediately after they write their first song.
What is to blame here? It's the internet.
That hunger and that want to become famous,
Yeah,
and have as many likes and as many they want
Yeah, the internet ruined
concerts,
all
they
of us.
want money, they want great hospitality rider being accepted, etc., etc. But it doesn't happen. Like it didn't happen to me at least for 12 years before I could get paid for my first gig. So it does take time, and musicians need to understand, and youngsters especially, that uh, music as a career, if you're serious about it, you need to seriously spend time behind both your craft as a musician and also as much time as it takes to market yourself. And if you're not good at it, then just get somebody else as a professional. Invest money in getting that thing done. So it takes years of and hours every day to get wherever you have to eventually. And tide over several failures. I think that is the story which most of them don't get to hear. They only get to see somebody who is successful and doing well. But only I know how many sleepless nights and how many tears and how much money I've lost. And people will probably laugh at me if I start telling the stories where I've failed miserably and how many times
One such story.
like for example, the first tour we did of UK, I spent 36 lakhs from my pocket to make that tour happen. People back home in India, especially my non-musician friends, used to say, but you could have bought a site in Commonalty. 40, 60 easily would have got it. Today that value would have been 3 crores. This is the kind of discussion I get into. And it puzzles me completely how limited a vision people have about what life can be. The fact that I have endless amount of stories to fill 2 books maybe, or at least the entire childhood of all my grandchildren is incredible. They will not have original stories like mine to tell their grandchildren, for example. I don't think people realize that there is so much more than just buying a site and building a house and having a family and driving a car around and eat popcorn and watch a movie during weekends. There's so much more to life than,
Yeah, it's like,
and then
and
there's
then
so much
what?
more to see and experience, and so many experiences that will make you richer as a person, maybe poorer by the pocket, but definitely richer as a person. And today I'm very proud of the fact that we as a band were bold enough to spend whatever we had. I'm still, like I keep telling, I'm okay not having a car today. I still have a scooter which I ride around, and I have a studio which I'm very proud of, and I live in my studio and I work from my studio, and I don't have a separate home that I go to, so it depends on what your priorities are, what makes you happy, and as long as you're focused on that alone, I think it happens. And then once you define what makes you happy, I think life just gets sorted.